Catachan is one of the worst human worlds in Warhammer 40,000 because the planet itself is the enemy. It does not need demons, traitors, or alien armies to become a death sentence. The jungle is enough. From orbit, Catachan looks like a living green world, but on the surface, almost every plant, insect, animal, and patch of ground can kill you. The trees can hide predators, the vines can strangle, the flowers can poison, the mud can swallow a man whole. Even silence is dangerous, because it usually means something nearby is hunting. The wildlife is monstrous. Catachan devils are huge predators, capable of tearing through men and vehicles. Venomous creatures wait in the undergrowth. Insects can carry infections or toxins. A soldier from another world might survive a battlefield only to die because he touched the wrong leaf or stepped in the wrong place. That is what makes Catachan so terrifying. Danger is not rare there, it is constant. Every moment is a test. Sleeping, eating, walking, drinking water, crossing a river, or lighting a fire can all become fatal mistakes. The planet does not give people peaceful days. It gives them chances to die. And still, humans live there. The people of Catachan are some of the hardest humans in the Imperium, because they have no other choice. Children grow up learning how to read tracks, avoid poison, use weapons, and recognize the sounds of approaching death. Weakness does not last long on Catachan. Carelessness lasts even less. This is why the Catachan jungle fighters are so feared. They are not terrifying because of noble training halls or perfect equipment. They are terrifying because their homeworld is worse than most war zones. A normal childhood on Catachan can prepare someone for horrors that would break soldiers from safer planets. But that does not make Catachan heroic. It makes it a nightmare that happens to produce survivors. The jungle does not care about faith, rank, courage, or loyalty to the Emperor. A general and a child can die just as quickly if the planet catches them. Catachan is worse than hell because hell feels like punishment. Catachan is worse because it is simply nature without mercy. It does not hate mankind, it just keeps growing, hunting, poisoning, and waiting. Necromunda is worse than hell because it proves a planet does not need monsters in the jungle to become unlivable. Sometimes, humanity can build hell for itself. The entire world is covered in hive cities, enormous towers of metal, smoke, factories, pipes, tunnels, and overcrowded hab blocks. Billions of people live packed inside structures so massive that many citizens never see the sky. For them, the world is not open land, fresh air, or sunlight. It is rust, concrete, machinery, and polluted darkness. At the top of the hive, noble houses live in luxury. They control trade, politics, weapons, and production. Far below them, ordinary workers spend their lives inside factories, producing goods for the Imperium until their bodies fail. Many are born, work, suffer, and die without ever leaving the same level of the hive. The lower you go, the worse it becomes. The underhive is a place of gangs, mutants, criminals, toxic waste, collapsed tunnels, and forgotten communities. Law becomes weaker with every level. In some places, there is no real government at all. Only whoever has the most weapons, the strongest gang, or the most brutal reputation. Necromunda does not kill like Catachan. It kills slowly. Poisoned air destroys lungs. Bad water spreads disease. Factory labor breaks bodies. Gang wars turn streets into battlefields. A person can vanish in the underhive, and no one above will ever care. To the rulers of the planet, the poor are not people. They are numbers, workers, criminals, or waste. And yet Necromunda is valuable to the Imperium. That is the darkest part. The planet is not considered a failure, it is considered useful. Its factories produce weapons, ammunition, equipment, and materials for Imperial war machines. As long as production continues, the suffering underneath does not matter. For the people living there, hope is almost a myth. A child born in the lower hive may grow up surrounded by violence, hunger, toxic smoke, and the constant fear of being recruited, robbed, enslaved, or killed. Joining a gang can be one of the only ways to feel protected. Working in a factory can be one of the only ways to eat. Neither path is freedom. Necromunda is worse than hell because it is not chaotic. It is organized. Every level, every factory, every worker, and every corpse feeds the same system. The planet does not survive despite suffering. It survives because of suffering. In Warhammer 40,000, Necromunda is one of the clearest examples of the Imperium's horror. It shows that mankind does not always need enemies to create nightmares. Sometimes all it needs is industry, poverty, corruption, and enough time for cruelty to become normal. Baal is worse than hell because it looks like a sacred homeworld, but it is also a dying wasteland that turns survival into punishment. It is the home of the Blood Angels, one of the noblest Space Marine chapters in the Imperium, but the planet itself is anything but beautiful. Long before the Blood Angels became legends, Baal and its moons were scarred by ancient wars. Radiation, deserts, poisoned landscapes, and ruined civilizations shaped the people who lived there. To be born on Baal was to inherit a world already broken. Water was precious, food was scarce, and survival depended on endurance more than hope. The people of Baal lived among ruins, mutants, raiders, and the remains of a better age they could barely understand. The planet did not offer comfort. It offered heat, hunger, dust, and the constant reminder that humanity had once reached greatness and then fallen into decay. For ordinary humans, Baal was not a holy world. It was a place where life was hard from the first breath. That contrast makes Baal so tragic. From this devastated world came the Blood Angels, warriors known for beauty, nobility, art, and sacrifice. They carried the image of angels while recruiting from people raised in misery. The planet created both suffering and greatness, as if every noble thing had to grow from poisoned soil. But Baal's horror did not end with its environment. The Blood Angels themselves carry the curses of the Red Thirst and the Black Rage. Their homeworld is tied to a bloodline that constantly fights against madness, hunger, and the memory of Sanguinius's death. Even its greatest defenders are haunted. Then came Hive Fleet Leviathan. The Tyranids descended on Baal not to conquer it, but to consume it. The skies filled with living ships. The deserts became battlefields. Blood Angels and their successor chapters gathered to defend their home, knowing that if they failed, Baal would be stripped down to dead rock like countless other worlds before it. The devastation of Baal turned an already brutal planet into an apocalypse. Successor chapters were nearly destroyed, the moons became slaughterhouses, the defenders were buried beneath waves of claws, teeth, and living hunger. Baal survived, but survival did not mean safety. It meant standing in the ashes after almost everything had been taken. Baal is worse than hell because it is a shrine built on suffering. It is holy to the Blood Angels, but holiness does not make it kind. Its people endure a dead world. Its warriors endure a cursed bloodline, and its history is marked by hunger, radiation, mutation, and invasion. In Warhammer 40,000, Baal proves that even sacred places can be nightmares. Sometimes, the worlds most worth defending are also the ones that hurt their children the most. Cadia is worse than hell because it was built to stand in front of hell and hold the door shut. For 10,000 years, Cadia guarded the edge of the Eye of Terror, the massive wound in reality where chaos gathered its armies. Most imperial worlds feared invasion. Cadia expected it. Every citizen was born under a sky touched by madness, knowing that traitor fleets, demons, and the servants of the dark gods waited beyond the stars. This shaped everything about the planet. Cadia was not a peaceful world with an army. It was an army with cities attached to it. Children learned discipline almost before they learned comfort. Families raised soldiers. Fortresses covered the surface. Training, duty, and sacrifice were not special ideals there. They were daily life. To outsiders, Cadians seemed impossibly hard. But that hardness came from living on a world where weakness could doom billions beyond the planet. If Cadia failed, the forces of chaos would have a direct path into the Imperium. Every Cadian grew up carrying that weight, whether they wanted it or not. The planet was attacked again and again. Black crusades, demon incursions, traitor forces, cult uprisings, and endless war turned Cadia into one of the most militarized worlds in human history. Even when the planet survived, it never truly knew peace. Victory only meant preparing for the next invasion. Then came the 13th Black Crusade. Abaddon the Despoiler threw the full power of chaos at Cadia. Traitor space marines, demon engines, corrupted titans, cultists, monsters, and warships descended on the system. The defenders fought with legendary stubbornness. Trenches became graves, cities burned, fortresses cracked. But the Cadian Guard kept fighting as if surrender was not a word their world had ever taught them. In the end, Cadia did not fall in the normal way. Abaddon hurled the remains of a blackstone fortress into the planet itself. The impact shattered the world. Continents broke. The surface split open. The fortress planet that had stood for 10,000 years died beneath its own defenders. But even then, the soldiers did not break. That is why the phrase became legend. Cadia broke before the Guard did. Cadia is worse than hell because its people were born into a war that could never end. Their home was not meant to be enjoyed. It was meant to be defended until death. Even the planet's destruction became part of its duty, because it bought the Imperium time. To live on Cadia was to grow up staring into the face of chaos and be told to stand firm. And the terrible thing is, they did.
Krieg is worse than hell because its people do not simply live on a dead world. They believe they deserve it. Once, Krieg was a loyal imperial planet, but it fell into rebellion. Its rulers turned against the Imperium, and the world was consumed by civil war. Instead of surrendering, the loyalist commander Jurten unleashed nuclear weapons across the planet. Cities burned, the surface was poisoned, the skies darkened. Krieg was saved for the Emperor, but almost destroyed in the process. What remained was a wasteland. The people of Krieg survived beneath the ruined surface, inside bunkers, tunnels, and underground facilities. The planet above became toxic, scarred, and hostile to life. To walk outside without protection was to step into a world of ash, radiation, and death. But the worst part of Krieg is not only its environment. It is what a catastrophe did to its culture. Krieg rebuilt itself around guilt. The people saw their world's rebellion as a sin that could never truly be forgiven. Every generation after that was raised with the same idea. They existed to repay the debt. Not through comfort, not through rebuilding a better life, through service, sacrifice, and death in the Emperor's wars. This is why the Death Corps of Krieg are so feared and respected. They are soldiers who march into artillery fire without hesitation, dig trenches on worlds that are already lost, and accept casualty rates that would break other armies. They do not fight because they believe they will survive. They fight because survival is not the point. A normal human fears being sent to war. A Kriegsman is raised to see war as purpose. His identity is buried beneath uniform, gas mask, number, and duty. Individual life matters less than obedience. Fear is weakness. Mercy is suspicious. Death in service is not tragedy. It is payment. That makes Krieg horrifying in a different way from Catachan or Necromunda. Catachan kills through nature. Necromunda crushes people through industry. Krieg turns guilt into a civilization. It teaches its children that the highest thing they can become is a corpse useful to the Imperium. And the Imperium gladly accepts this. To Imperial commanders, Krieg is valuable because it produces endless soldiers willing to die in impossible wars. Siege regiments, trench armies, artillery crews, and infantry waves pour out of a planet that has already condemned itself. The Imperium does not need to force Krieg to bleed. Krieg volunteers. Krieg is worse than hell because hell punishes the damned. Krieg trains the damned to thank the Emperor for the chance to be punished. It is a world where survival is not hope, but delay. A world where every child is born into inherited shame. A world where redemption is measured in graves. Commorragh is worse than hell, because hell is usually imagined as a place where the wicked are punished. Commorragh is a place where the wicked rule. Hidden inside the webway, Commorragh is the dark city of the Drukhari. It is not a normal planet, but it belongs on this list because it is one of the most horrifying places anyone in Warhammer 40,000 can end up. It is a city of impossible size, built from shadow, stolen technology, ancient cruelty, and endless suffering. The Drukhari live there because they are running from Slaanesh. Their souls are slowly drained by the chaos god their own civilization helped create. To survive, they feed on the pain of others. Suffering is not just entertainment in Commorragh. It is medicine, currency, art, and culture. That means every prisoner brought into the city becomes valuable. Raids from Commorragh can strike almost anywhere. A peaceful colony, an imperial city, a battlefield, or a void station can suddenly be attacked by Drukhari raiders moving too fast to stop. They do not need to conquer the world, they only need captives. The unlucky survivors are dragged back into the webway and delivered into a civilization that has spent thousands of years perfecting cruelty. There are arenas where victims are forced to fight for the amusement of nobles. There are laboratories where homunculi reshape flesh into living sculptures. There are palaces where pain is offered like a luxury. A person can be tortured, healed, rebuilt, and tortured again, because death is often considered too quick to be useful. The horror of Commorragh is that it is not chaotic madness, it is organized. It has politics, houses, markets, rulers, warriors, artists, and traditions. Cruelty is not a breakdown of society there. Cruelty is the foundation of society. The Drukhari do not see themselves as monsters. They see themselves as refined, superior, and free from the weakness of pity. For a captive, there is almost no hope. Even if they survive the first torment, survival only means more time in the city. They may become a slave, a gladiator, an experiment, a decoration, or simply a source of pain until their mind finally breaks. And even then, a skilled homunculus may find a way to make the body useful. Commorragh is worse than hell because it turns suffering into civilization. It is not a battlefield that ends when the war is over. It is not a death world where nature kills without thought. It is a city where intelligence, beauty, and ancient power are all dedicated to making pain last longer. In Warhammer 40,000, many places can kill you. Commorragh is worse because it may decide that death would be too merciful. Medusa is worse than hell because weakness has almost no place there. It is the homeworld of the Iron Hands, and everything about it reflects the brutal philosophy of the chapter that came from it. The planet is unstable, harsh, and dangerous. Its surface is covered with broken landscapes, shifting terrain, volcanic regions, mountains, storms, and deadly wastes. Medusa does not offer an easy life to anyone born there. Settlements must survive in a world that seems built to punish comfort. The people of Medusa grow up in clans, fighting for resources, territory, and survival. Life is hard, violent, and unforgiving. A person who cannot endure pain, hunger, cold, injury, or loss is unlikely to live long. Like many deaf worlds, Medusa creates strong people, but it does so by grinding away anyone who cannot keep up. But Medusa's true horror is not only the environment, it is the belief system that grew from it. The Iron Hands believe that flesh is weak. Their primarch, Ferrus Manus, was killed during the Horus Heresy, and his death left a wound in the chapter that never truly healed. Instead of accepting grief, many Iron Hands turned that trauma into hatred of weakness itself. They replace parts of their bodies with metal, suppress emotion, and treat vulnerability as something shameful. On Medusa, that philosophy becomes part of life. Pain is not only endured, it is judged. Fear is not only natural, it is weakness. The body is not a gift, it is a flaw waiting to be corrected. To outsiders, this can feel less like discipline and more like a slow war against being human. For those chosen by the Iron Hands, survival may lead to transformation. Flesh is replaced, emotion is buried,
Mercy becomes suspicious. The ideal warrior is not the one who feels deeply and overcomes pain, but the one who removes anything that can be called weakness. That makes Medusa terrifying in a quiet way. It does not always kill as quickly as Catachan or torture like Commorragh. Instead, it teaches people to despise the fragile parts of themselves. It turns survival into hardness and hardness into identity. Medusa is worse than hell because it does not only threaten the body, it attacks the idea that being human has value. On this world, to be soft, afraid, wounded, or grieving is not simply painful, it is failure. And in the shadow of the iron hands, failure is something to be cut away. Nocturne is worse than hell because the planet is never truly safe. It is the home world of the salamanders, one of the most humane space marine chapters in the Imperium. But the world that created them is violent, burning, and unstable. Nocturne is a volcanic death world. Its surface is shaped by fire, earthquakes, ash storms, lava flows, and massive tectonic disasters. Settlements can survive for years, then be threatened by the planet itself without warning. The ground can split, the sky can darken. Rivers of lava can erase homes, roads, and entire communities. Life there is not only hard because of the environment, it is hard because the people know disaster will always return. Every generation learns to build, lose, rebuild, and endure. They live with heat, smoke, scarcity, and the constant knowledge that nature can destroy everything they have made. The wildlife is also dangerous. Nocturne is known for enormous reptilian beasts and drakes, creatures powerful enough to become legends among its people. To hunt them is a test of courage and survival. To be hunted by them is almost certainly death. On Nocturne, fire is not only in the mountains, it is in the animals, the weapons, the culture, and the souls of the people. But unlike Krieg or Necromunda, Nocturne does not completely erase compassion. That is what makes it different. The salamanders became protectors partly because they understand what ordinary humans suffer. Their world teaches endurance, but also community. When disaster comes, survival depends on people protecting each other, not only themselves. Still, that does not make Nocturne kind. A child born there may grow up watching eruptions burn the horizon, ash fall over the settlements, and families prepare for the next catastrophe before the last one has fully passed. The people are strong because weakness can be fatal, but their strength is not clean or painless. It is forged through repeated loss. Nocturne is worse than hell because it is a world where destruction is part of the seasons. Other planets suffer invasions, tyrants, or industrial misery. Nocturne suffers the anger of its own core. It burns, shakes, cracks, and forces its people to prove again and again that they can survive what the planet throws at them. And yet, from that burning world came the salamanders, warriors known for protecting civilians more than many other space marines. That contrast is what makes Nocturne so powerful. It is a nightmare that did not only create killers, it created guardians. But for the ordinary people living under that volcanic sky, heroism does not remove the danger. Nocturne remains a world of fire, ash, monsters, and disaster. A world where survival is never guaranteed, and every home is built with the knowledge that one day the planet may decide to take it back.